Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am Katie, if you're new, and Love Island is back for the winter. Anyway, they've moved the villa to South Africa for the season, and for some reason they've got Australians in there now. One single person DM'd me and asked me to do a part 2 of my Psychology of Love Island video. So this video is for her specifically. If she's the only one that watches this, then that's fine with me. Also, I love talking about Love Island. Like, I could talk about this for hours, so I'm thrilled to be here. Also, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I'll put it, I never know which side it's on, but I'll put it on one of these sides here for you to watch after this one maybe, or before if you'd rather. So if you're here, I assume that you know how Love Island works. Basically, they take a bunch of really hot people and they lock them up inside a villa and make them couple up with each other. If no one wants you, you get dumped from the villa. And if the public do not like you, they can vote you out of the villa. And that's it. That's literally the whole show. And as with pretty much all reality dating TV shows, like with most of these shows, all of the relationships formed tend to end within 1 month of the contestants getting off the TV. And so everyone is like, wow, they are huge fakers. They were just pretending to be in love that whole time, which I personally don't think is true, at least for the majority of contestants. I think that the producers are pulling a few little tricks out of their sleeves to create an environment that convinces people that they genuinely have found the love of their life. But then obviously once they're not in that environment anymore, the whole thing falls to pieces. So what are some of these little psychological mind games that the producers play to make people fall in love? I'm so glad you asked. Here is what I personally think. First of all, they are forcing vulnerability so hard. And one thing about vulnerability is that it is going to foster intimacy. It is going to create these mushy, smushy, lovey-dovey feelings between people. The level of vulnerability that people are expected to show on Love Island is certainly not quite maybe normal at all for the stage of relationship that they would actually be in. It's things like the confessions of love and adoration and the recoupling speeches, where they're basically competing to give a speech that proves to the whole audience and all of the other islanders that they are the strongest couple and their relationship is going to last forever and they like each other so much more than any of the other couples. So this literally puts them in a position where they are very openly expressing how they feel about the person that they're with, as well as listing all of the things that they like about that person, which, to be fair, I think actually might be another little psychological thing that's going on, because if you're focusing so hard on all of the things you like about this person, that's going to make you like them more, because you're sitting there thinking about all of these likable things about them and you're like, wow, this person's really likable, I like them a lot. Anyway, that's just a side note. And I think they're also just generally expected to be vulnerable constantly. Like, if in every episode you're not telling your partner and any other person who will listen how much you like them and where exactly your head's at, then you're not doing enough. In the real world, I think the point at which you would actually be acting like this in a relationship and kind of talking about these things at this level would be way later on. It would be at the point when you're really starting to get quite serious about each other, unless you're like a very intense person in relationships, but that's not the majority. So I think forcing people to talk like this is basically pushing the whole timeline forward and mimicking this kind of period of a relationship where genuinely falling in love with someone would probably be coming relatively soon after saying the sort of stuff that you've been saying. And also, when people are vulnerable with you, assuming you don't have an avoidant attachment style or something else getting in the way, this makes you feel closer to the person. This makes you like them more because it feels nice to know that they trust you enough to be vulnerable about their feelings. And that also gives you space to be vulnerable in return, and talking about your own feelings with someone is going to make you like them more. So it's like this little cycle thing of just vulnerability and love feelings. I really hope you're all understanding quite what I'm saying and what I'm meaning, because I'm moving on to the next thing now. I'm also having my coffee now, which means I'm putting down my microphone, which, as usual, is not plugged into anything. I just like to use it as a prop. I always put my fucking finger, I always think about how weird my finger looks. That's just how I hold coffee cups. And just every time I'm editing, I see it. I see the way I'm holding my coffee cup and I'm like, that's so weird. You're a weird freak, Katie. Anyway, my microphone, yes, not plugged in. I just like to have something to do with my hands. Moving on, number 2. This is another way I feel like they are bringing forward the relationship timeline in a fake manner that makes people think that they are in love. And that's by orchestrating a bunch of like challenges and fights and little disagreements in the relationship. As much as everyone kind of wishes that relationships didn't have fights and arguments and disagreements, that's just not realistic. Like, it's something that happens in every relationship because that's just how people and love works. And unfortunately, these challenges and fights and arguments actually do sort of make you stronger, knowing that you can overcome these things together and work through issues. So rough patches are technically good for relationships. However, I think in the very, very early stages of relationships, these challenges probably should not be the kind of intensity of the challenges that they're experiencing in the villa. But Love Island is obviously a breeding ground for relationship difficulties, because that's what makes it good TV. So if you say or do something that your partner is not going to like, you know that the producers are going to make sure that they hear about it. And if you're feeling happy in your relationship, you're feeling content, you're feeling comfortable, things are going great for you, Casa Amor is going to happen. And it is going to hurt your feelings so hard. So all of the little strings that the producers are pulling result in a big fight, good TV, lots of crying, great TV, a little bit of yelling occasionally, fantastic TV, and then dramatically making up by either sitting down and talking very deeply and lovingly about their feelings and how much they mean to each other and want to work through this. Or the other option is that the person who messed up and did something wrong will perform the cringiest, most staged and embarrassing grand gesture in order to win them back, and no matter what they've done, all is forgiven. And they spend the rest of the episode kissing and cuddling and talking about how much they love each other and how happy they are that they've worked through it. I don't know if you can tell, but I hate this. If I was dating someone and they did something really, really seriously wrong, I would not want them to do one of these grand gestures. Like, if they did that, I would probably block them and never speak to them again. Like, it is so weird to me. Like, it feels so performative. I hate it. I really, really, really do not like it. And I don't know how it works every single time. Because I don't know anyone who watches the show and goes, oh, that's really cute. Like, everyone watches it and goes, that's really stupid. So, I don't know. I guess that's another thing that we don't really get as the audience of the show that they're experiencing in there, and that you kind of see a lot of them mention is, they say, if this had happened to me in the real world, there's no way I'd put up with it. Like, I would not forgive them for this. Things would be over. In the villa, they're a little bit more likely to lower their standards and accept behaviour that they otherwise wouldn't, because they know that if they don't forgive their partner, odds are they're gonna get chucked out, and they don't want that. So it's kind of more forced forgiveness, which is really healthy, I'm sure. Anyway, these kind of fights that are happening would generally be taking place hopefully a lot later on in the relationship, when things are kind of a lot more intense and serious. But obviously, once again, the timeline is being shifted forward a whole bunch by the producers. There's the added bonus of the producers being able to formulate the perfect argument. They're able to give the islanders exactly the amount of information needed to make sure the fight is bad enough that it gives them that sweet, sweet content, but not quite bad enough that it's unforgivable. Alright, the next thing that the producers do that I feel like forces these islanders to feel like they're in love when maybe they actually aren't, they prime a lot of feelings of insecurity in them. To be honest, they are basically negging them, which is really, really good. So I talked in part 1 about how the show makes these islanders feel insecure physically in a way that they never would have before, because they're obviously really, really used to being the most attractive person in every room, and suddenly they get put in a villa with a bunch of people who are exactly the same, and they're suddenly feeling, you know, pretty much about average, which brings their confidence down a little bit. I always just cringe. Like, it causes me physical pain when you see them do their little introduction videos and they're like, oh, I always get whatever I want. Like, no one has ever rejected me. I'm not worried about any of the other people in the villa because I'm always like, first pick, my good friend, your experience here is not actually unique. You're about to have an awful time. Anyway, so my last video covered more of that physical appearance kind of insecurity stuff. They also make them feel insecure in other ways by making them feel like the general public and the other islanders and even the person that they're coupled up with don't actually like them very much as a person. I think one of the clearest ways they do this is with the voting. You see, when they are voting people out, they never just tell you like outright, this is the person who's got dumped. They always give like, these are the bottom 3 who could be getting dumped before they actually tell you who's leaving. And sure, part of this is doing it for dramatic effect to make us wonder who it's going to be, but another part of it is that it leaves the people who didn't get voted out but were in the bottom wondering what is wrong with them and what is making people not like them. I think the clearest example of this would have been Tasha last season, who was in the bottom so many times in a row, and obviously you could see that it was just getting to her. Like, as you can imagine, that shit probably hurt, and she got really upset in that one episode. And it's still so freaking weird to me how everyone was like, I don't get why you're so upset about this, like you still have Andrew, you shouldn't be complaining, like you're clearly playing a game if you're this upset. And it's just like, what? No, I think it's completely valid to be very sad and upset when you're basically being told over and over again that the vast majority of the public do not seem to like you as a person. That's upsetting. I would also probably actually be crying a little bit. But aside from the voting, they also get made to feel really insecure in the challenges. They've more recently gotten rid of, I think, the worst challenges for this, like the one where they would read out tweets or they would read out things that the other islanders had said about them behind their back. But those challenges were bad for making people not feel good about themselves. Like, you could always see every time there'd be at least 1 or 2 people who were like really affected by it and started questioning everything about themselves basically. So they don't really do those challenges anymore, but they do still have things like the movie night where you kind of see a little bit of these questions coming up, and they also just find other ways of making sure that if the islanders have said something mean about each other, the other person is gonna find out and it's going to hurt their feelings a little bit. So anyway, all this stuff is happening. Now these islanders are in a position where they're feeling kind of insecure about themselves, and when you're feeling insecure about yourself, it makes you clingier, it makes you more anxiously attached, it makes you lower your standards with people, it makes you forgive people more easily because you're doubting yourself and you're doubting your own worth and the treatment you actually deserve in a relationship. Actually, I think that of all of the manipulation tactics that they use, this one makes me the most sad because literally it is negging. When people neg someone in a relationship, they're doing it to chip away at their self-esteem and their self-confidence, so this person is willing to accept less than they previously knew that they deserved. It's sad. It's sad. Anyway, the last thing that I am going to talk about in this video is the desperation that these people probably feel to actually stay on the show and what that is doing to them. So obviously these people are on the show for a reason. They want to be on the show and they would like to stay on the show and not be kicked out. A lot of them have to quit their jobs to go on the show because they're hoping to make some sort of career out of being an influencer afterwards. And if that is not an incentive to fall in love with one of the many hot people presented to you, then I don't know what is. They all know that if they are not falling in love, or at least trying to fall in love, they are not sticking around for very long. Being single is not an option in the villa. So they've gone into the show with the intention of falling in love. And one of the ways you can predict actual behavior is by what people are intending to do. So if you're intending to fall in love, you're definitely more likely to fall in love. Compared to in real life, they're not generally looking at all of the other islanders in this overall objective way of asking themselves, okay, outside of the villa, would I see any of these people as a potential relationship partner? Would I honestly, genuinely, truly like any of these people? Instead of this, what they're thinking is, okay, of all of the people who currently are in the villa, which of them do I like the most and would most like to get to know? Because in the real world, if you're given 5 people you're not that thrilled about, you can just pick none of them because there aren't really going to be any negative consequences of picking no one. In the villa, you have to pick someone if you want to stay. And I do think that in order to kind of couple up with and get to know these people, they have to convince themselves that they do actually like them more than they do, because like if you've chosen them, you must like them at least a little bit, right? I think it's just this whole thing of trying to avoid this cognitive dissonance of having made a decision that doesn't actually match up with how you feel, because as a person you don't want to think that you would be coupled up with and getting to know someone that you don't actually like. So in order to avoid feeling like this, your brain convinces you that maybe you do like them, even if they aren't your usual type, or you feel like it's just more of a slow burn and the chemistry wasn't immediately there, but it's building over time. I feel like the most perfect example of this is from this season, the relationship between Kai and Liv, because that man did not want her. He so clearly, right from the first episode, we can see that he didn't want her. But then later on in the season, there's no more Tanyel for him to be with, and so he had a look around at all of his options, saw Liv, and was like, yeah, I think I could probably like her. And so I think he liked her. And I genuinely don't think he was being fake about it. I do think that he liked her. I think he believed that he liked her. But do I believe that he would have liked her if not liking her didn't come with the threat of a rapid villa exit? No. I probably think he maybe would not have. Which is why, spoiler alert if you have not seen Casa Amor of this season yet, it was so easy for him to jump ship when he met someone that he genuinely did like and had that instant connection with and didn't need to convince himself at all that he liked. I really hope that I'm making my point clear here. What I'm trying to say is that when your only option is to do something, in this case couple up with someone, your brain is going to try and convince you that you like it more than you actually maybe do. Anyway, that's it for this video. Are you watching this current season of Love Island? If you are, please tell me in the comments what you think of all of the couples. Currently, I am personally a big huge hater of nearly all of the couples inside that villa. I think the only couple that I genuinely like is Kai and Sanam. Other than that, in every couple there is at least one member bringing the team down. Maybe my opinions will have changed by the time I actually post this video, but as of right now, I think that Shaq and Sammy are the only two people that I don't have a questionable eye on. Okay, that's actually it. I hope you're doing normal. Once again, ITV2, if you are watching this, put me in the villa, please. I may not be quite as sexy, but I will fall in love with every single person. And I think it'll be funny. You've already proven that you're okay with putting Australians inside, so I'm close to Australia. It's not that much further. I just think I was built for being on a dating show. I think that's what I was made for. No, that's all though. Put me on the show. Anyway, that's all. Okay, love you, bye!